It's time now for Entre Nous today with Solange Mougin. Hi, Solange.
Hi, Katie.
So you are focusing on the housing crisis that's hitting Paris, France, but also Europe. And you're going to start off here in the French capital, where it can be particularly difficult to find a place to live. So let's start first with the basics. Who can actually afford to buy or rent now in the City of Light?
Well, the quick answer is fewer and fewer people, or at least those on normal French salaries. Currently in Paris, to rent a T3 or a three-room flat, which generally refers to a two-bedroom apartment, the real estate site Bien Ici calculated that as of last December, you needed a household income or a total salary of 7,200 euros per month. That's 20% jump from 5 years ago. To buy a T3 apartment in an older building, your household income must be over 9,600 euros per month. These figures are based on the notion that one should be spending no more than a third of your household salary on housing. And of course, this is an average. Certain arrondissements, of course, are more expensive and a few others are cheaper.
Right, but Solange, when I hear you say those numbers, they seem quite high for what actual French salaries actually are.
Yeah, even if the Paris region's salaries are around 20% higher than the rest of mainland France, it is still far from the mark. According to l'INSEE's 2023 figures that were released last year, the median salary in the private sector in the Paris region is 2,640 euros per month. So for a single income, or even if you double it as a couple, it's far from the 7,000 and the 9,000 mark that's needed to rent or buy. So here in Paris, like in many cities, there is this phenomenon of people moving out to the suburbs to raise families. And studies have shown that this housing crisis can affect things like birth rates, for example. But there is also the very real struggle for students and young professionals as well.
I called 20 to 25 agencies. I also sent out more than 100 requests on sites.
There are too many people, young people, students, but also young professionals like us that can't find housing and are in subpar flats.
Now, the French press frequently profiles not only the long lines to visit studios, but also candidates who potentially lie on their applications, saying that they have long-term contracts so that they can get insurance and that the agencies accept their applications, or those that can't find guarantors, or those that turn down jobs because they simply can't find a flat. So this begs the question of who can really still buy or rent in Paris. Well, either the very wealthy, investors, foreigners, and actually foreign purchases make up in certain chicer, more popular arrondissements around nearly a quarter of sales transactions. But beyond those foreign buyers, namely for luxury apartments, there is a phenomenon of des maxi propriétaires, or individuals, many of them French, who have 5 or more apartments or properties. In Paris, 40% of the housing that is owned by these maxi propriétaires, and nearly 60% of the rentals. And many of them no longer want to go through the hassle, or don't need to go through the hassle of renting for potentially a number of reasons. Airbnb, energy rules, capped rents, no financial need. So not only was 1 in 5 apartments vacant in Paris in 2021, but Paris is losing some 8,000 primary residence rentals per year. That's according to l'Atelier Parisien Urbanisme. So I've given a lot of figures, but essentially the finding is that finding a Paris apartment can be la galère, or a nightmare very quickly.
It certainly can, and we've been focusing a lot on Paris. What about the rest of France?
Well, according to a November poll by Odoxa, 7 out of 10 French people say it has become difficult to find housing in their area. According to Le Monde, the price of housing has increased 88% in the past 20 years in France, while salaries just rose some 13% between 1996 and 2023. And the Foundation for Housing for the Underprivileged, which used to be called the Fondation Abbé Pierre, has just released its annual report on this. And it found that nearly 1 million people in France don't have a home. Either they live on the street, in shelters, shanty towns, or are housed by someone. And of that 1 million, 350,000 are fully homeless. Now, the report also raises alarm bells about social housing, where there's been a spike in demand because the private sector is beyond their means. In France, there are currently 1.9 million requests for social housing.
2/3 of those in social housing are of the intermediary classes or households that have regular incomes, people who are integrated into society, but their salaries aren't high enough for the private sector.
Solange, we've talked about Paris, we've talked about France. What about the rest of Europe?
Well, this housing crisis is hitting cities around the world, and most European cities are no different. Setting housing policy is generally a matter for member states. But in 2025, the EU began studying how to help, as there has been a 60% rise in house prices across Europe in the past decade. And 1 in 10 Europeans say that they have a hard time paying their rent or their mortgage on time. And we see this especially in cities. Using the Deutsche Bank Institute's figures, the council found that, for example, someone in Lisbon, they have to pay 116% of their salary in rent, so more than they earn. In Paris, it's 45% of the average salary that's needed. That line right there is a third. So most are above that third. That which is thought to be the comfort zone. Now, what to do about all of this? Well, we do see a lot of different proposals out there: capped rents, lower interest rates, boosting construction, taxing vacant housing, changes in inheritance rules, incentives to rent. There is no one magic answer, but it is an issue that is expected to continue to rear its head in the decades to come.
Solange, thanks so much for that look at the housing crisis, not just here in France, but across Europe. That's France 24's Solange Mougin for this Entre Nous. Don't forget, you can always check out our website for more Entre Nous at France24.com.